This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel, broadcasting remotely. There's been a record number of unemployment claims filed over the last month, more than 350,000. Coming up, we hear from Daryle Dudzinski, a deputy commissioner at the State Department of Labor. Now, what's been your experience filing for unemployment? We want to hear from you. That's coming up. First, Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont joins us. Do you have a question for Governor Lamont? Here's the number, 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. Governor Lamont, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Lucy.
I want to start off. Sunday evening, New York Times reporter Neil Vigdor tweeted that Vice President Pence said New York and Connecticut are past the peak for COVID-19. Is that accurate, Governor? Are we starting to flatten the curve?
We're starting to flatten the curve. For the first time, we have 2 days. 2 days does not a trend make, Lucy, but 2 days of reduced hospitalizations. And that is a real positive. It speaks to our hospitals, speaks to the capacity in our hospitals. But even, Vice President Pence in his COVID commission says, wait 30 days and see whether this trend holds before you think about seriously loosening any of your restrictions.
Does that complicate things when Vice President Pence says that New York and Connecticut are past the peak? But again, we need to, as you mentioned, wait for the next 30 days to see how this trend continues.
Look, it's accurate, but I don't want to send the wrong message. If you're suggesting when he says that people are going to go, we're out of the woods, everything is fine, happy days are here again, that would be the absolute wrong message. Look what's happened in Singapore. They relaxed their strictures, and they've got a 20% surge in the last few days over there in COVID infections. So we've got to be careful a while longer.
We've heard from health experts. The New York Times also reporting over the weekend that the U.S. can't reopen safely until it triples the amount of COVID testing that's happening. So when we look at what the testing that's been growing across our state, Governor Lamont, tell us how Connecticut can get to that number. I understand there's at least one rapid test facility open in New Haven.
That is true. I was there on Saturday, and that's CVS and Abbott Labs. They're going to be up to about 1,000 a day, probably by today. These are folks who self-diagnose. They respond to the CBS.com site, and people were lined up. They got an appointment, and there were some nice smiles when the vast majority found out that they were not infected. But overall, I think about 15% did find that they were infected, and that is troubling.
When you mentioned this rapid test facility that opened, how many more can Connecticut get up and running, again, to triple the amount of testing that's happening in our state, Governor?
Well, we're tripling the number of tests with Jackson Labs and UConn and Yale, New Haven. But you're right, getting these Abbott Lab fast response tests are invaluable. And I was talking to Larry Burlow, the head of CBS, just a couple of days ago, and urged them two things. One, since the virus is accelerating still in the greater Hartford area, let's get a rapid test in Hartford, maybe in the north end, make sure that people have some security there, know what's going on, and see if we can get a mobile test facility. As you know, Lucy, in our nursing homes, we tested, but we often took 3 or 4 days for that result to come back, and in 3 or 4 days, another 100 people could get infected. So we need rapid real-time mobile testing in our nursing homes now.
When you talk about another rapid test facility, possibly in the north end of Hartford, again, this mobile testing that you mentioned, how quickly could that be happening, Governor? Are you in talks where that could be seen in the next few days or the next week or so?
Certainly not in the next few days. And we were fortunate, given a good relationship with CBS, that one of the very first states to get at least one rapid testing. And there's 49 other governors on CBS's telephone line there. But I feel very confident that we will get one soon, but I can't put a date on that.
You can join our conversation with Governor Ned Lamont. The number 888-720-WNPR. That's 888-720-9677. Chris is calling from Stamford. Chris, what's your question?
Yeah, hello, Governor. Thanks for taking the call. I'm a small business owner in Stamford, and this has just devastated my life. I understand, we have a major health crisis. When do you think we can, start opening some of these small businesses up, maybe in a sort of a graduated manner? But I'm just very concerned about the economic impact of this.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Chris, I come out of small business as well. I'd say two things. To a certain degree, it depends on the small business. Unlike a lot of our other states, we kept manufacturing going. We kept big public construction going. When it comes to smaller businesses, I think it'll be directly impacted by how likely it is that people can social distance there or not. And even in places where it's tougher to social distance, we'll get them open as soon as we get a little more testing and face masks so we can protect people. That's, say, a nail salon or a barber shop.
It's a good transition to what you've announced over the last few days, this Reopen Connecticut advisory group. So, Governor, when you're looking at benchmarks for people like Chris and others who are really struggling, they want to see the economy open up again, but we've got to first tackle COVID-19 and lessening this virus's impact on our communities. Tell us what some of those benchmarks are, because, again, people want to hear some timelines here. They're getting pretty anxious.
Yeah, Lucy, three things. One, I would say continue bending the curve on hospitalizations. Hospitalizations, to me, is sort of a proxy for infections throughout the greater community. Obviously, number two is testing, even antibody testing. If we can do that and find that people have developed a bit of an immunity to COVID, they'd be more likely to go back. Younger people would be more likely to go back since they're less likely to suffer infections. And the third one is upping our supply of protective masks and gloves. We have plenty of gloves. In terms of protective masks, we have enough for our hospital workers. Most of our frontline responders, we're just keeping up at the nursing homes. But to make that more broadly available so your barber or nail salon would also be able to treat you in close quarters but safely, is probably still a little bit away. But we're right on the front line of, I just believe we're supply and demand on PPE, the protective gear, is getting closer, and we feel pretty confident the next couple of weeks we'll have a lot more supply.
You can join our conversation 888-720-9677 with Governor Lamont. Josh is calling from Hartford. Josh, what's your question?
Good morning, Lucy and Governor Lamont. I'm a city councilman in Hartford, and a concern that I'm hearing from a lot of my constituents is about rent. I know the governor took some really useful steps to postpone rent for the next couple months and to let people use their security deposits for rent to a certain degree. But that doesn't really solve the problem so much as it pushes it down the road. And it puts us in a situation where a lot of people who aren't working for months and months are going to face a big bill when the pandemic ends. So my question is, what further steps is the governor taking, and is he considering just canceling rent along with postponement of mortgage payments for owners?
No, that's a good question. There's only so much we can do at the state level. For the feds, we're working with Senators Murphy and Blumenthal to see if we can turn that rent grace period into a grant or forgiveness. Same like the last question when it came to small business. That we wanted to make sure that was not a loan that had to be paid back, but that was a forgivable loan. And I understand exactly what you're saying, that when people have no income coming in, having a balloon payment at the end of a rent forgiveness doesn't help much. So we are aware of that and doing what we can. Knowing that landlords, they have some forgiveness, they have some grace period on their mortgage payments as well.
Again, you can join us with Governor Lamont, 888-720-WMPR. That's 888-720-9677. Governor Lamont, you mentioned nursing homes earlier. I wanted to go back to that. Again, we're hearing that the rate of infection in nursing homes has really grown. 40% of state COVID deaths were nursing home residents. I know over the weekend you announced that these Connecticut nursing home operators will be getting a boost in Medicaid payments, but we're hearing from frontline staff at these nursing homes worried about the high rate of infection that they're not only not able to get appropriate PPE, but But when we think about who gets priority testing, they're not eligible for that. Is that something you can change?
In my mind, they are first responders, and just like the CBS drive-through test we were mentioning earlier, with the first 100 tests every day are reserved for first responders. So let me look into that, Lucy. But, I believe we should make sure that happens. These are folks putting their lives on the line, front line every day.
We also heard from some residents who unfortunately have lost loved ones, Governor Lamont, elderly loved ones in nursing homes. We're hearing again over the weekend that you're having now the Connecticut Department of Public Health do more inspections of these nursing homes. But when we think about the great toll it has taken on the elderly population, was the state too slow to respond to this particular population in dealing with the spread of COVID?
Oh, my God, I think we all were. I mean, Connecticut, as you point out, probably 40%, almost 40% of our fatalities were related to nursing homes. Massachusetts is 50%. Rhode Island, I recently read, is about 75%. It's incredibly dangerous. We were one of the very first to say no outside visitors to nursing homes just because of the nature of bringing the potential infection into a nursing home like that. I think that helped us, in the near term anyway. You're right. We are inspecting these nurses. These are mainly private companies, so it's not like we can simply dictate. But they are regulated by us, so we are going through, making sure they have the right sanitary disinfectant, the right notification for people in terms of infection. As you know, we've got some outside facilities now to get infected patients out of the nursing home, in the ICU perhaps, and then they able to recover in a COVID-only nursing home, which is previously unoccupied.
When we talk about those COVID recovery centers, 2 have opened. There's 2 more that are coming down the line. But in terms of, again, trying to prevent this infection from spreading at nursing homes, what more can be done? Because, again, this nursing home population, like the prison population, like people in psychiatric facilities, it's hard to socially distance.
It's very hard. And sadly, they are trying to do that. They tend to have their meals alone in their room, and that's tragic. So don't go visit your grandparent, but at least call your grandparent. Stay in close contact, because that is just so depressing. The most important thing I'm trying to do, and that's what I talked to CBS about, is get that mobile testing facility over there, so I can get real-time tests and then be able to figure out who's infected and get them to the right level of quarantine or hospitalization much faster and get them out of the common. But there's a lot less commingling at the nursing homes today than there was 2 months ago.
Kathy on Twitter, as a follow-up to my question about social distancing, she wants to know what the state's doing to prevent COVID-19 infections within state-operated facilities for people with psychiatric or intellectual and developmental disabilities. Yeah,
that's a lot of state workers, Lucy, are frontline workers. These are essential workers, and if you provide a psychological counseling or support for folks with physical disabilities, you can't do all of that by phone. So, we're getting those folks, make sure that they have the protective gear they need if they absolutely have to be there in person. We've created a hotline called Talk It Out, 211, Talk It Out, just for the thousands of people that things are building up just given the stress. And we have counselors, we have not-for-profits, we have doctors, making sure that you get a friendly voice on the other side of the phone call. And not to go on, but we're also doing a lot of telelearning, as you know, and online scholastic and teachers calling in, providing classes. So this is not lost educationally for our students. But increasingly, they're doing more counseling online as well or by telephone, just because people need somebody to talk to, and we're taking that very seriously.
Governor Lamont, just a quick follow-up. When we're talking about state-operated psychiatric facilities, what is your administration doing to look at the patients to see who may be discharged so that they're not at risk of getting COVID-19, as also thinking about discharging people that don't pose an unreasonable risk to the public? Have you had that discussion yet?
Yeah, I think we have. I think Miriam over at Demas is very careful about who. This is true of psychiatric hospitals. It's true of corrections. It's true of nursing homes. It's true of homeless shelters. All those places where generally people have lived in relatively close quarters are like a petri dish. And so we're doing everything we can to be able to make sure they can have a safe, secure, isolated environment there so they are less likely to contaminate each other. We're trying to do better and better every day in terms of rapid testing, as I described before, so we can get somebody who's been infected into a separate facilities. For the homeless, Lucy, we've got, I think it's, hundreds certainly, if not thousands of hotel beds that we've been able to stand up. So to get folks in a homeless shelter who perhaps are infected, so they in turn could be treated in a separate capacity as well, much more safely. And you don't want to just simply release people out into the street because they're obviously there's a potential for a contagion.
Susan's calling from Hamden. Susan, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Governor Lamont, for taking the call. We all saw what happened in the Wisconsin primary, and I'm wondering what plans you have to ensure a vote-by-mail option, not only in the primary, but in the November election.
Hey, Susan, that's an excellent question. First of all, we delayed the primary from April to June and now to August. I'm a strong supporter of vote-by-mail. I think we should be planning for November right now. And by the way, I have a stay safe, stay at home order in place. So it's, even in August, my instinct is that for our much older residents, I do not want them going out and voting. So I'm working with the legislature to figure out what is the best way to do a vote by mail. And we've got to start that right now. There's a little anxiety within the legislature that vote by mail could be subject to fraud. But look, they do it in dozens of other states, Republican states, Democratic states. It's an idea whose time has come, especially now.
And Jane's calling from Glastonbury. Jane, we just have a couple of minutes left. Go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Governor. First, I just wanted to thank you for what you've done to protect us in Connecticut. I have a question regarding Kevin Rennie's article yesterday morning in the Hartford Courant, where he talks about a committee that has been organized to reopen Connecticut. He says that it will not be subject to Freedom of Information guidelines, and I just wanted to address.
All right, Jane, again, thank you for your call. Governor Lamont, again, she wants to know why this Reopen Connecticut group won't be subject to FOIA laws.
So what we've got is an advisory board, under our, CT, Advanced CT, which is our not-for-profit independent. We've got academics and business people from across the spectrum, all, from a broadest base of people. We got the best people helping advise us right now as we try and go through, and they in turn coordinate with the state governments as well. So, and they're going to be reporting on a regular basis. I think every Thursday they're going to be part of my press briefing going on, and I hope that satisfies people that they're going to give the very best advice they can in this fast-changing situation. I think it's the best advisory group I've seen in the country in terms of helping us figure out when and how we can get people back to work safely.
Governor Lamont, before we let you go, again, we know that you have these people working, thinking about how to reopen Connecticut safely. Many people, including school children, are home. Any expectation that school will open before June 30th?
We've said that May 20th will be our decision point. Now, that's because of, like I said, the testing and the masks and a lot more information than we have right now and the trends on hospitalization. So probably a week or two before that May 20 date, Miguel Cordona will start working with superintendents and seeing what, if anything, we can do before the end of the school year. I'm not going to prejudge that.
Someone did ask quickly, Governor, on Twitter, wondering about plans for opening summer camps, day and or residential, and what restrictions they should expect. Is this something that's even on your radar yet?
I know there's some. We're beginning to think about that, and the Open CT group is also thinking about that. We've had a lot of young people who have been, on the sidelines for well over a month. So that's why people are thinking about schools, people are thinking about camps, thinking about at least getting more and more education programs going. Maybe something certainly before back to school in late August, September, to help some kids, catch up and socialize and learn the skills. The teachers are doing all this now telephonically and online, but I think there's going to be a time in July and August where people are going to need more social interaction. And I will tell you, we've got a group, it's called 4CT, and that they've raised millions of dollars, and they're thinking about a civilian service corps, maybe get young people some jobs and pay them a little bit to help get back in the game as the summer goes on.
Well, Governor Lamont, we appreciate your time here on Where We Live. Anything else that you want to add before we let you go?
I know it's really tempting, and spring fever is in the air, and you hear some relatively good news out there, but this is no time to take your eye off the ball. I need people to stay safe, stay at home, maintain the discipline a little bit longer, and if we do that, we're going to be so much better for the long term. So hang in there with us. We're going to get this state opened again and going again, but in a very thoughtful way.
Governor Lamont, thank you for calling in today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Lucy. Talk to you soon.
This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Coming up, are you one of the more than 350,000 who filed for unemployment over the last month? What was your experience like? Do you have a question for the State Department of Labor? 888-720-WNPR. That's 888-720-9677. After the break, we'll be joined by Connecticut Department of Labor Deputy Commissioner Daryle Dudzinski. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. The pandemic has left millions of Americans out of work. In Connecticut, more than 350,000 unemployment claims. But the number of people who've lost their paycheck is much larger when you include people like the self-employed and gig workers. For those who are in our state eligible for unemployment insurance, the sheer number of claims caused a wait time of 6 weeks. Now, that backlog has been remedied thanks to a computer programming upgrade. But with the pandemic shutdown expected to last for an unknown number of weeks, how will the State Department of Labor be able to meet future claim demands? Joining us on the phone now is Connecticut Department of Labor Deputy Commissioner Daryle Dudzinski. Commissioner, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you.
I mentioned an upgrade to the computer program the Department of Labor uses. That caused the backlog, according to the governor and your department. So tell us a little bit about, when we look back at the recession of 2008, just how much there was a change in terms of the amount of claims being filed.
Sure. During the Great Recession, there was an increase through each month for unemployment claims, and so it was gradually growing, and we had a call center environment with about 130 staff members handling the phones, and it was open typical call center hours, Monday through Friday, 7 to 4:30, and if you couldn't get through, you weren't able to actually submit an application, and that became a serious problem. Even with 130 staff members working, which went to overtime and Saturdays and holidays, and still we had customers waiting weeks to file and submit their unemployment claim, and that was a serious problem. We were able to come out of that Great Recession, and unfortunately we hit what we called a fiscal crisis, and we had to downsize our staffing. So in the claim intake, it went from 130 employees to approximately 40, and we were no longer able to sustain a call center environment, and that was in 2015. And realizing that and preparing for where we were going to be implementing in a new unemployment insurance system with consortium states, preparing for that as well. We designed an internet application and implemented that in the summer of 2016. So with the reduction of staff and a new online application, our customers were using the online application much more than we expected, which was great. And knowing that the call center environment, which is very expensive to maintain, was in desperate need of millions of dollars in support to get to keep and maintain a call center environment, along with the staff that just wasn't there. The internet application continued to be used and was growing in leaps and bounds as far as activity. And that was the direction the agency needed to go in because, again, we could not support a call center environment. The great thing about the online application is it doesn't close. It's open 24/7, 365, and it has great communication back and forth between the customer through emails. So around December of 2016 and in May of 2017, there was further enhancements to the application to make it even more accessible, along with assisting the staff in the process. Now, that's the front end of the unemployment system. There's 4 others that ultimately work with the mainframe, which is really the problem in processing unemployment insurance claims. It's just not a nimble system. It's a COBOL language, and it makes it more difficult. But for the customer, at minimum, they have the online application. And before the pandemic, what the agency did was put UI, unemployment insurance experts, in each of the American Job Centers to help support the in-person service to a customer. And our customers really enjoyed that. They really liked the in-person service. And it also was providing them an opportunity to understand what an American Job Center is throughout Connecticut, and it would allow
Commissioner Dudzinski, because these centers can't be open right now because of the pandemic, in terms of, again, answering people's questions, is there any movement to hire more workers to help have call-in support? So
we did, because of the closure of the American Job Centers, we did create 2 phone lines, that is being answered by our Department of Labor representatives to help and to assist. And we have those listed on our website as well. We're not going to be able to stand up a call center environment. It would take a very long time. It would take months to do that, and also to be able to staff where they would be able to respond to an unemployment insurance question or to resolve an issue. But we do have 2 phone numbers to provide assistance and to gather information. We also created online assistance through WebHelp and what's called an online assistance center for direct UI questions, such as if they missed a week of unemployment, they can submit their claim that way as well.
One of the reasons we wanted to have you on, Commissioner Dudzinski, is to allow our listeners to ask some questions, some of the issues they've run into trying to file for unemployment. Michelle's calling from Lebanon. Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, this is Michelle from Lebanon. I was laid off mid-March. I filed, and now I have not received any payment. I can't get through on any phone lines. I've left emails. They are not being responded to. And I had a message on my claim inquiry today and last week as well that my claim is on hold due to potential issues. I don't know what issue that would be. I don't know how to find out. I can't make contact. And meanwhile, I'm not having any income. I'm getting very concerned and, worried. What can I do? Who can help me?
Thank you, Michelle. Commissioner Dudzinski.
So this is just very unfortunate. This is something that we definitely strive to avoid, and we don't want anyone to be misinformed. There are several reasons a claim could be on hold. There could be an inappropriate answer. There could be a hearing that is necessary, scheduled. So it's always case by case. And again, this is unfortunate. If you've called the information center, they may be able to provide you some other guidance. And it sounds like you submitted a web response asking for an update, and we would be replying to that in the order we get them. We're trying our best to answer. I think we have about 18,000 emails, and as we address the backlog and prepare for the federal claims, we're just trying to handle all these different responsibilities, and it is unfortunate. But for you specifically, Michelle, I would try to call our number and see if you can get assistance there. It's 860-263-6975 or 203-455-2653. And again, we also have the web help, and that email can be submitted through dol.webhelp@ct.gov.
Commissioner Dudzinski, we know that the state benefit, if a claim is approved, is $600 per week. But what's coming on later this week from the federal government? Could these checks now be doubled through that federal aid that's going to be added on?
State unemployment insurance can range of a weekly payment between $15 and $649, okay. And that's been consistent since October. The additional $600 that you're referencing is under the CARES Act, a federal program. We're developing the software to create that additional $600 on top of the state benefits. So in addition to. And that would be effective retro to any payments made from March 29 on through July 25th. We're anticipating that program, that software, to be implemented by the end of this week and be payable on April 27th. That is our goal and what we're striving to do. So it would be, if you're eligible for $649, the maximum unemployment benefits from the state, and it would be an additional $600, so it would be a total of $1,249 per week. And again, it would be retro. We'll be making those payments as well.
Again, you can join our conversation with the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Labor in the state of Connecticut. That's Daryle Dudzinski. The number 888-720-9677. Jean's calling from Hartford. Jean, what's your question?
Yes, I have a couple questions, actually. The software, is it completed for freelancers? I understand they're building new software for a new category for freelancers like production people in the video business.
Yes, the self-employed independent contractors under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance PUA under the CARES Act. That is a brand new unemployment insurance system, and we've been working towards that with our vendor, and we anticipate standing that up, implementing that at the end of this month. And again, that particular program will be accepting applications for the self-employed, as you indicated, freelance, and we'll be working through the process on how that application will look like, and the payments, if eligible, go back retro to effective February 2nd. So there's a lot of weeks there. If you were unemployed, it will go back to February 2nd.
And Jean, what's your other question?
The other question was, I previously was on unemployment benefits that expired in January for a teaching position, and there was no extension. But now, would I still be eligible to get an extension from that last year's unemployment benefit?
So each unemployment claim is case by case. So if you receive state unemployment and you receive 26 weeks of benefits within a year, you would have exhausted the state benefits. That particular scenario, the eligibility for the pandemic unemployment assistance could be in play for you effective February 2nd. And then what would happen is there's another federal extension for the pandemic extended unemployment compensation, and that is an additional 13 weeks when someone exhausts the state 26 weeks. And the PEUC, the Pandemic extended unemployment compensation is effective March 29. So your specific example, if you exhausted 26 weeks of state benefits in January, potentially you could be eligible for the PUA effective February 2nd through March 28th, and then you would be applying for the 13-week the pandemic extended unemployment compensation effective March 29. Each of those programs, state, PUA, which is the freelance or self-employed, et cetera, and also the 13-week federal extension, all of those programs would include the $600 plus-up for any payments made and effective March 29 through July 25.
Commissioner Dudzinski, I have to admit my head is swimming from all of the acronyms and different deadlines and amount of money that people can get. Is there a place on your website that's very clear in like FAQs for people so they can understand what they're eligible for?
Yes, that is one important concept. On our website, we do have Q&As, we have tutorials, and there's videos, there's a YouTube, and it's getting a lot of action, which is great. There's a lot of information on our website. There's even information that talks about if the company received their payroll protection program, the loan, and they're repaying or paying the employees for their work. Even retro, it explains how the employee would report that to us so we could stop their unemployment, et cetera. So there's a lot of great information about the CARES Act, federal programs, when it's effective, when it ends, and what's the duration, et cetera. So a lot of great information that's on our website at ctdol.state.ct.us.
Before we head to break, Commissioner Dudzinski, I'm curious about the financial resources to pay not only Connecticut residents but other Americans out of work. Is Connecticut in danger of running out of funds?
On our state benefits, the 26 weeks of state eligibility, our trust fund that is supported by the employers in the state of Connecticut is not solvent, and we anticipate running out of monies, so to speak, but we have already prepared to borrow from the federal government. So that has already been teed up. So when the trust fund becomes low as far as what it pays out on the state benefits, the 26 weeks, we will be borrowing from the federal government to make sure that there is no delay in anyone's monies. The federal programs, the $600 plus up, the self-employed, so to speak, pandemic unemployment assistance, and the 13-week federal extension, those are all 100% federally funded, and we're preparing to draw down those monies as we begin to pay those unemployment insurance programs.
At this point in time, do you know how much longer the state funds are solvent?
We anticipated around June of this year is when we would be borrowing, but as we have been paying out a lot of unemployment payments, they've been growing by about 50,000 or more each week. So, for example, week ending April 4th, we issued 103,000 payments. Week ending April 11th, 158,000 payments, and then as of last week ending April 18th, 253,000 payments, and that was $83 million just for last week. So, at the rate we're going, it's going to be before June, and we'll be analyzing that very closely. And we would anticipate early May is when we'll be looking at it, so in a couple weeks.
You're hearing Connecticut Department of Labor Deputy Commissioner Daryle Dudzinski here on Where We Live. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. If you've got a question about filing for unemployment, maybe something you've run into as you tried to file, you can call us 888-720-WNPR. We'll be back after a short break. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Again, with us by phone is Connecticut Department of Labor Deputy Commissioner Daryle Dudzinski to help answer some of your questions about unemployment. Pam's calling from Middlefield. Pam, what's your question?
Hi, good morning. My daughter's boyfriend was laid off early on in the pandemic, prior to the end of March. He received his unemployment. When he applied, the site said if you do not have a return to work date, just put in April 1st. So he put in April 1st. So last week, no money came into his account, and when he checked his records, there was a 35 code, which meant he had gone past his return to work date. There was no one to answer the phone. In fact, the number they called would hang up on them. They found no way to email. He couldn't modify his application. So then he thought, well, maybe he could do a new application. When he tried to do that, he got closed out of the system. So this poor guy has a couple of weeks of unemployment, will miss the extra $600 because it seems impossible for him to get in touch with anyone or to renew an application. I expect my daughter, who happened to work for the same country club, put in a slightly later date, but I expect it might happen to her, and it may happen to a lot of people. So I wonder how the Department of Labor is going to take care of that issue.
Thank you, Pam, for your call.
So we have been communicating with all of our customers by email. So basically what happened at the very beginning as we were trying to stabilize all of our systems from the maximum thresholds and whatnot, we realized that the best way for someone to actually file and to get automated payments was to use what's called a temporary shutdown program. And we created a tutorial to walk the customer through on what the questions would look like, what answers they want to provide, et cetera. And at the very beginning of the pandemic, no one knew how long it was going to last. So if the employer wasn't providing a return to work date, we were suggesting a return to work date, such as April 1 or April 15th, et cetera. And what we've done is we were able to expedite the claim and get those processed for the ones that did follow that instruction and tutorial. And then what would happen is they'd get another email and it would say, we did remove your return to work date because it's unrealistic based on the pandemic, and you would be filing your own weekly claims going forward. What we're finding is a lot of our customers are getting some of our emails, but other emails are going to spam or their junk drive, and they're not able to read them or they're not paying attention to them. So emails did go out. If someone did not read the email or understand that they had action, that they had to process their own weekly claims, and then it was too late because they missed a week, so to speak, they can go into our internet system where it has File for Unemployment Benefits, where they actually were filing their initial claim or their weekly claims or how they signed up for direct deposit. On that same page in the website, below it, there's a section called Quick Click, and the first bullet is miss filing a weekly claim. And all you need to do is click on that and certify who you are, put in the information in there, and then you'll be answering the questions about the previous weeks. And we will process your weekly claims, get you caught up, and get you paid if you're in a payable status. And then you would resume your own weekly claims. And so you're always filing for the previous week beginning on Sunday, but you also have Monday through Friday as well. And that's how the customers who are we believe a lot of the emails might be going to their spam. They're not allowing it to go to their regular emails. And that's how you would resolve that issue. And it sounds like they already used our system. They're familiar with it. So this would be hopefully a very easy transaction for them. And then we'll get to their claim, their weekly claims, and again, get them caught up and paid, and then they can go and continue to file. Any payment that we make will include the $600 plus up, effective for payments March 29. So if that person is missing a week or two because they didn't read or receive the email correctly about their ability to file their own weekly claims going forward, you do the quick clicks, missed a week, we'll get you caught up, and then when we run the programs to pay the additional $600, everyone would be made whole.
Commissioner, I wanted to fit in another call. Charles from Stamford, you're on Where We Live. Quickly, your question?
Yes, my question is, I'm a home improvement contractor, and I have to file estimated quarterlies. And my question is, this year I understand that my April 15th quarterly will be delayed till, I believe, July, when I have to make another quarterly payment. But the real issue is quarterly estimates are based on what you did the prior year, which last year I had a fantastic year, and you have to come within 90% of your estimated quarterly of last year. And my problem is that this year I probably won't make what I made for all my estimated quarterlies for last year. And I was wondering if the local or the state and federal government's going to do anything about that to kind of alleviate that kind of problem. And just
Thank you, Charles. We've just got a couple of minutes. Commissioner Dudzinski, any answer for him?
So if you're referencing the ability for a home improvement or self-employed to file under the pandemic unemployment assistance and how that would be calculated for their rate, we'll be using, right now, based on the federal guidance, we're going to be using the 2019 tax year and analyzing the net profit from the self-employed to determine what their payment would be if they are eligible for the pandemic unemployment assistance. Again, retro to February 2nd if they were impacted by COVID-19 related reasons. And it's all defined by the CARES Act under the federal government. So we have to understand if the person has lost employment, underemployed or unemployed effective February 2nd based on the CARES Act COVID-19 reasons for unemployment.
There's a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time left, Commissioner Dudzinski, but David on Twitter did write, a loophole exists that can result in adjunct faculty being denied unemployment insurance when their contracts finish. He wants to know how this loophole can be addressed. Do you have any answer to that?
That is a little bit of a complex scenario because adjunct professors, if they have what's called reasonable assurance of returning to the same or better position when the academic year resumes. So if they're working now and they complete the semester in May and they're off for the summer, the question to the employer is, or the school is, will they be returning to the same or better position when school resumes in late August or September? And so we'll need more information from the employer to be able to provide that information. If the school is not providing the reasonable assurance to the adjunct professor, then the unemployment during the summer could be paid out, including the calculation of their unemployment rate using the educational wages. That's the crux of the law is can we or can we not use the educational wages during the academic recess. And the reason behind that on their law is, do they have reasonable assurance of returning to the same or better position when the academic year resumes? And so we would need information from the employer to make that decision. And I don't know that these schools have analyzed what they're going to be doing when school ends and when they're going to begin the new academic year, and again, late August, September.
We're going to have to leave it there. I want to, again, thank Daryle Dudzinski. He's the Deputy Commissioner of the State Department of Labor. We appreciate your time and flexibility today.
You're welcome.
Today's show produced by Tess Terrible. Our tech producer is Kat Pastor. On the phones today, Carmen Baskoff. If we weren't able to get your question on the air, just email us or stand by, and we'll try to get some of your comments to the Commissioner offline. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Thanks for listening.